Welcome to our first webinar in our unit on human psychological development. This webinar is focusing on Piaget's theory of cognitive development, and it leads off of our discussions that we've had in class about some of the factors that influence an individual's development. It's important to note that cognitive psychology involves the study of how we acquire, organise, remember and use information. We're going to be studying cognition later on in our semester. Cognitive development focuses on how and when we develop and use these mental abilities. And the main theorist for this was Piaget, and we're going to be focusing on him in this unit. Piaget studied the development of children's understanding. He did this through observing them and talking and listening to them while they worked on exercises he set. It's important to note that the children that he studied were quite often his own children. Piaget's theory of cognitive development proposes that we move through 4 distinct and sequential stages from birth to adulthood, which develop our cognitive abilities. Each stage is linked to an approximate chronological age range, though these are subject to individual differences. These stages are the sensoromotor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. So, our first stage, the sensoromotor stage, is from birth to 2 years. There are 2 things that a child has to overcome in order to fulfill this stage. And the first is that they need to be able to differentiate their self from objects. This is when a child recognizes themselves as an agent of action. They are the one doing the action and making things happen, and they begin to act intentionally. An example here is that they pull a string to set mobile in motion, or shake a rattle to make a noise. They know that their action is going to lead to an effect. Another thing that they need to learn is object permanence, which is when they realize that things continue to exist even when they are no longer present to the sense. I've talked about this in class when I've referred to peekaboo. The next stage is our pre-operational stage, which is an approximate 2 to 7 years of age. This is when children start to learn to use language and to represent objects by images and words. Their thinking is still egocentric. They have a real difficulty in being able to take the viewpoint of other people. If you ask a child to tell you what they would see if they were standing over there looking your way, they will not be able to do it. They will still give you what they can see looking towards the other direction. The next thing that they need to be able to do is they need to be able to classify objects by a single feature. For example, they'll be able to group together all the red blocks regardless of shape, or all the square blocks regardless of color. You saw this in the feral child Victor, where he was asked to get just a book, and he wasn't able to get a grouping of it. He was desperately trying to find the specific book. The next, third stage is the concrete operational stage, which is 7 to 12 years. This is when individuals can start thinking logically about objects and events. They achieve conservation of number at around age 6, conservation of mass around age 7, and weight age 9. So maths teachers start to get a bit happy. Conservation is referring to the idea that an object does not change its weight, mass or volume or area when it changes shape or appearance. If I've got 2 empty glasses, but one is filled with water but it's short and fat, if I were to pour the water into a tall, long glass, I need to be able to understand through conservation that the amount of water has not changed. Individuals also classify objects according to several features and can order them in a series along a single dimension, such as size. The next stage is the formal operational stage, which is 12 years and over. Its focus is on complex, abstract, logical thinking. It's evidenced by an individual's ability to develop plans to solve problems, identify a range of possible solutions to problems, as well as developing hypotheses and systematically testing solutions. So you can see the change here when these things get introduced in high school. In English, it's critical literacy. Individuals in this formal operational stage become concerned with the hypothetical, the future, and ideological problems. However, do all people achieve the formal operational stage? And I think I've said this in class, but actually, originally Piaget believed they did, but his later research suggested that no, this may not be the case. That formal operational thinking may depend on education and everyday experiences. Mathematical training has been shown to be effective in enhancing formal operational thinking. And I'm just going to add that critical literacy skills in English probably do the same thing, in my opinion, but that's not specific to the theory. So, lastly, was Piaget right? And there are strengths of his theory, which is that it has had a great impact on psychology. His theory stimulated considerable interest and led to thousands of studies by other psychologists. We're still studying him right now in our class. Many aspects of Piaget's theory have been confirmed, but there are some that have been challenged. The limitations is, for example, it's now suggested that infants know a lot more and know it sooner than Piaget suggested. We could look at language. Some individuals develop that a lot younger than how Piaget suggests. Some psychologists disagree with the idea of stage theories. They argue that development results from life experiences rather than biological timing. So there's the battle of the level of explanations. That's the end of our webinar. I apologise that it's 7 minutes long. Please forgive me.